So now let's talk about some bandhas. It's a very important part of pranayama. That's why it's usually advised to start with asana practice asana for a while before coming to a pranayama practice. Because through asana, it's easier for us to start sensing and exploring what it means to hold bandha, mula bandha, uddiyana bandha, than someone who's never really embodied holding these energy locks and wanting to access it right away just from a pranayama practice. However, I will go through them again. So it's hard to explain. It's one of those things that shall be experienced rather than talked about. But okay, how can we access it? So it's not my favorite way of explaining how to feel mula bandha, but one easy way is that if you have to go to the bathroom and the bathroom is full, so you have to line up and wait to go pee or do whatever you need to do, you're gonna hold it, right? So you have this activation of the pelvic floor holding from peeing yourself. Yeah, so this is just to sense what it means to activate the pelvic floor, right? And to activate this energy lock. Remember, bandha, mula bandha, uddiyana bandha is not a physiological structure. However, by engaging certain structures, it can permit us to create this energy lock in the pelvic floor and the lower abdomen. Okay, so and when you are doing asana practice or meditation or pranayama, obviously you don't want to be imagining I have to pee and I have to hold my pee during this whole time. It's just now seated, you get in touch with what it means to hold bandha, mula bandha, and then you let go of that perception of having to hold your pee or whatever you need to do in the bathroom. Another way I like to access mula bandha is from the sit bones, right? So if we're standing, it would be accessing mula bandha from the medial arch of the feet. However, if we're sitting, our feet become our sit bones. And as we previously talked about the position of the pelvis, if we are in the right position on our sit bones and really sensing, being aware of these bony structures under us and grounding them. So if I'm here, this is not grounded, obviously, because I'm towards the fleshy part of my butt. And when I come on the sit bone and slightly in front of it, this is how I know, one of the ways I know I'm present. I am grounded. My sit bones are sitting in a grounded way on the block or on the ground. And just by grounding the sit bones, there is the right tonicity set in the pelvic floor, keeping the pelvic floor engaged rather than just, and if I'm too much here as well, there's nothing engaged. It's just all letting go, right? And uddiyana bandha then is the lower abdominal lock, and usually because the fascia lines of the deep abdomens are connected with the fascias of the pelvic floor, turning one or the other, they simultaneously turn on each other, right? So another way would be to bring in the lower abdomen, so you go in and a little bit upward, guiding the prana upward, and that also turns on the mula bandha immediately. Why do we do that? Well, because the home of Kundalini is in the Muladhara, sitting in the pelvic floor, right? What we're trying to do is to bring up this prana through the Sushumna Nadi all the way up to the crown. So the Sushumna Nadi is the highway of prana. It's like the main channel, right? The thickest, the highway. So it's not a little street of prana. It's the highway. And physiologically, it would be parallel to the spinal column and where the nervous system lives, right? Inside the spinal column. So what we're doing by holding Mula Bandha, the pelvic floor activation, is not allowing the prana on the inhale or exhale to escape through our pelvic floor. Because as the diaphragm descends through an inhalation, the pelvic floor also descends and reacts to the movement of the diaphragm. So what we're doing is keeping the pelvic floor active and not allowing the prana, keeping the breath as if inside and guiding it upward. And then it comes Uddiyana Bandha, so it goes bam, bam, and we go upward, right? And now I'm going to also take the time to talk about Jalandhara Bandha, which is the throat, in the throat area, the energy lock of the throat area. And we use that to keep, when we keep breath retention, the kumbhakas, after an in-breath or an exhalation, to kind of put the lid on and to not allow the breath to kind of diffuse out through our ears, nose and mouth. So, and the way to sense that is, you can imagine a little mandarin or a golf ball sitting right here, and you're going to curl your chin over that mandarin. So you're not going to squish the mandarin, you're just holding the mandarin in place. If I'm too open, the mandarin will fall. If I'm pressing my chin towards my throat, then I will squish the mandarin. So I'm just keeping it in place, and as I roll my head down and keep the mandarin in place. What that does is it closes kind of the throat area, keeping the breath retention, whether it was after an inhale or an exhale. Well, if it's an inhale, there's breath inside, so there's air inside and you're keeping it in place. And if it's a retention after an exhale, it's not allowing more air to go in. So you're keeping that energy lock. Okay, so that's called Jalandhara Bandha.